It's bad for the country. These billionaires.
Tax rates, confiscatory tax rates, kill the very businesses that people need to work for.
Weird that that just doesn't happen in Scandinavia, that have some of the highest tax rates in the world, but also have monstrously huge social safety nets. Apparently woke is now calling out rich people.
Controversies of the weekend was Bill Burr. So I've spoken about Bill Burr on the program. And as I've said before, Bill Burr has completely lost the thread, absolutely lost the thread. So Bill Burr has decided, as a very rich individual who makes money by saying funny things sometimes.
Fallacy, appeal to hypocrisy. That's a fallacy.
And again, this is coming from somebody who really enjoyed, for example, his Red Rock special. I think that he's done some really funny stuff in the past. And then he decided that he was going to go.
What happened to the right? Now they're canceling comedians. I thought they were going to legalize comedy. What is this? It's jokes, Ben.
Not just woke, but the wokest of the woke on everything from race to economics.
Whoa, super woke.
So on his
Omni-woke.
Monday morning podcast, he decided that he was going to sound off about billionaires again. Now, again, this is not his first rodeo on this particular topic. We talked about this a few weeks ago. He suggested that Luigi Mangione, who is the shooter of Brian Thompson, who is the head of United Healthcare.
Allegedly. Hey, we don't know. They're pleading not guilty. Whatever happened to, the dual process, the law, all that kind of stuff.
The CEO over there, the murder of that guy on the street. Bill Burr had suggested that he basically had it coming because he ran a health insurance company. Well, now Bill Burr has expanded his critique out to all billionaires. Apparently, according to Bill Burr, simply earning a lot of money in the United States or anywhere else means that you should be murdered. This means that Bill Burr is both a moral and an economic idiot. This is not.
Also, is that literally what he said? Or like, I love how this whole thing got leaked. Even TMZ was like, Bill Burr says that like billionaires should be like, off in the streets or something like that. I was like, this isn't like a leaked audio. It was his podcast that's publicly available. It wasn't like, oh my God, you caught him. Holy shit.
Actually how economics works. The way that you become a billionaire in a free market capitalist system is by generating new goods, products, and services at a price enough affordable that people want to get it. That is it.
And other oddities. Thank you so much for the dono. Was walking by Hood and saw Alicia was with her since 10K subs. She's all grown up. This comment has zero substance. You could ignore me. Well, I will thank you very much for this for the dono. Thank you for funding the show.
That is how you make a lot of money. Back in the old days of feudalism, the way that you made a lot of money is by robbing poor people and taking all their stuff. And you had to do that to a lot.
That's not what feudalism is at all. Wait, this is the cool kids philosopher. Isn't he supposed to be part of the intellectual dark web? That wasn't how, I mean, if you're saying that basically working for your feudal lords and then having tithing or having something provided for by the lord in exchange for just endless amounts of labor is robbery, I mean, yes, absolutely. If we're talking about like, the surplus value, labor exploitation or extraction, if we're getting into Marxism here, then you might be speaking our language. But it wasn't just literally that's how the people, did you think it was just people running around, breaking into each other's homes? That's literally by definition what feudalism was.
A lot of poor people because they didn't have a lot of stuff. And it turns out the people in those days who were rich actually weren't all that rich by modern standards. They didn't have any modern conveniences. There was no innovation or anything like that.
Wait, because they hadn't discovered electricity yet? What are you saying? There was kings. Look, you can't think of them as rich people, okay? You can't even think of lords, or you can't even think of them as royalty or any of that kind of stuff. By today's standards, all right, they didn't have microwaves, okay? There was no NyQuil. So, I mean, like, were they really that rich?
Okay, but billionaires of today, generally speaking, are billionaires because they created something that's awesome for everybody. But Bill Burr obviously doesn't understand it.
Wow, that's an easy sales pitch, right? Billionaires exist because they created something that's awesome for everyone. No exceptions to the rule. None whatsoever. Would he apply those standards to tobacco companies? Like, I wonder. I mean, I'm just trying to choose something that is just so, blatantly obvious on its surface. Billionaires only exist to be able to accumulate that much money. We're talking more than $999 million. Just unfathomable amounts of money. More money than any human being needs and or could even spend in their entire lifetimes. I mean, sure, you could, if you want to be like, well, I would buy island after island. Maybe I'd try to buy a small country and then I'd have like 25 yachts and 50 planes. I was like, okay, fine, yes. you're spending money really rapidly. But in terms of like, what do you need to live off, or even just live extravagantly? Like, you could live incredibly extravagantly off $5 million, off $10 million, $20 million, fucking $100 million. Are you kidding me? You never have to work a day in your life on any of those amounts. But on $999 million, that's still not enough for you. Well, yeah, that's because in order to be a billionaire, in order to have a company that has, again, hundreds of thousands of employees who are working for you, you have to be exploiting their labor on such a scale that wealth is being concentrated so rapidly into your pockets. I mean, there's a couple exceptions. There's like the crypto billionaires. It's like, oh, I invested in Bitcoin when it was nothing. And then all of a sudden now I've got hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, sure. You didn't have to necessarily exploit a whole bunch of workers to get to that point. But for the vast majority of the billionaire class, of the, 2,225 billionaires that exist in the United States today, that's how they get their money. Unless it's inherited, unless you have inherited a vast amount of wealth, which then just required the exploitation of your parents who have been doing. But otherwise, yeah, for you to grow a company to that size, that you are worth billions of dollars, where people are pouring, again, billions of dollars into your company into the form of stock markets because they consider it a safe investment, it better be producing something and exploiting hundreds of thousands of people's labor.
Economics. He doesn't understand morality either, because his suggestion is that if you, apparently, if you are worth $999 million, you're good to go. If you make $1 billion, you should be murdered.
No, he never said that either. I'm sure he would consider that to be an obscene amount of money as well.
On the streets, according to Bill Burr.
The amount of people that are struggling out there because of these billionaires, and they got us all arguing liberal and conservative. We got to stop doing that. If you work a full week at a job, you should be able to pay your rent. You should.
How is that controversial? Like, you have to be so capitalist mind poisoned to hear that sentence, which used to be a fundamental pillar of the American dream itself. Something you think Ben Shapiro would be on board with, to hear that sentence and not think something's wrong. If you're working full time and you can't afford your rent, something's fucked up there.
Shouldn't have to go out and get another job and still be struggling. It's bad for the country. These billionaires.
I guess this is woke. I'm curious, did Ben's audience like this? Ooh, this one's pretty close. 1.5K likes to 934 downvotes.
They need to be put down.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even do my part.
Like rabid dogs.
Casey, thanks for the raid last night. No problem, Casey. Everyone check out Casey Explosion's channel. She's awesome.
And then he added, they are rabid with effing greed and they're going out and dividing everybody. Well, there's certainly no divisiveness I'm sensing from Bill Burr there, talking about how people should be, legitimately murdered for earning too much money in the United States. It's this sort of terrible.
I mean, I think he's also telling a joke. It's a joke. He's being hyperbolic. He's not calling for his podcast listeners to now take up arms in his name as if he's like, the vanguard of the revolution or anything like that, Ben. And also, if they weren't acting like unbelievably greedy parasites and just destroying every aspect of society, say, what if they used their vast amounts of accumulated wealth and power to try and make society better for everybody? To try and give, say, more feeding programs for children, to try and build more schools, to even build roads. Everyone loves roads. That one's easy. I mean, little things like that. Then they might not be billionaires anymore. They could still be, I don't know, 800 millionaires, 700 millionaires, still have vast amounts of wealth, more money than you'd ever need in your lifetime to live beyond comfortably. We're talking lives of absolute luxury. You can own the mega yachts. You can have the islands. You can do the hunting humans for sport, all the shit that weird ass billionaires seem to want to do. But you would also just maybe not be a billionaire because you were trying to help the world a little bit better. So yeah, in the meantime, while people are suffering and starving, well, what tends to happen to society when that happens? When people are having scarcity, when we're not suddenly living in a post-scarcity society, or we're not living in if people are struggling to even get basic foodstuffs, or people are having food insecurity to the point where they're worried about how are they going to find the next meal for their children, well, yeah, I'm assuming that there's going to suddenly be some civil strife.
Economic analysis that leads to Bernie Sandersdom. You just say, in a free country, nobody should have to live on more than one salary. Okay, well, thanks for your statement about realities that you wish didn't exist. Now, what is your alternative?
Not that. Raising the minimum wage. There you go. That's an easy one. That's one that Bernie Sanders has tried to do so many fucking times. Oh, yeah. How do you propose that someone... I'm raising the minimum wage. There's one, right? What is it in the United States? $7.25 an hour, something like that. Like, if you're working full time, then yeah, you shouldn't be having trouble paying your rent or worrying how you're going to pay your bills or worrying how you're going to fucking buy food. That sounds grotesque.
Because it turns out the government ownership and redistribution of resources makes everyone extremely poor. It turns out
that wasn't like, we're not even getting to that. That's not what he was suggesting, by the way. That's not it. Like, you can't just be like, oh, by the way, billionaires are hoarding vast amounts of wealth and destroying society. Oh, so what is he saying? This is communism then? Does he want communism? Bill Burr, pro-communism?
Massive tax rates, confiscatory tax rates, kill the very businesses that people need to work for.
Weird that like that just doesn't happen in Scandinavia, that have some of the highest tax rates in the world, but also have monstrously huge social safety nets. That's strange. That like you would think that like they would just be destitute, that every single business in those countries would just absolutely collapse. That they would have absolutely no innovation whatsoever. They wouldn't even be able to have those social services. How would they exist if be it not for the capitalist gods?
It turns out that high levels of government regulation and intervention in the real estate market tend to...
It turns out that the people who love welfare are wealthy corporations. That's it, just giving again hundreds of billions of dollars of tax subsidies to people like Elon Musk or the oil industry, a whole bunch of corporations like that. That's never seen as welfare, though, corporate welfare. That's never seen as government handouts. That's never people seen as living off the corporate teat, or I should say the government teat in that case.
To generate higher prices in real estate, including in rent. That's what rent control does, for example. A misbegotten attempt to punish developers who are quote-unquote billionaires by controlling
that. Why quote unquote
the rents, and what you end up with is less production of buildings.
I love all of these talking points. Like, Jesus Christ, just deep throating the boot on every possible venue. It's like, oh, okay, what? Bernie Sanders is apparently upset that like all this wealth concentration is happening in the hands of the 1%. Bill Burr is saying that if you work a full-time job, if you're a hard worker, then you shouldn't be struggling to pay rent. What do you suggest? What do you suggest? Okay, if people do what you want, then we won't build homes. If we tax people more, if we tax rich people more, then they won't innovate. They won't give us jobs. All right, so we have to give them everything they want. They deserve it and they need it. And if they don't have it, then we won't have anything. They'll take it all away from you.
The economy is dynamic. People like Bill Burr believe.
Absolutely. And because we have grotesque, wealth inequality, we need to have wealth redistribution at this point. If we don't, the entire system could eventually collapse. That's what leads to incredible, strife. This is a massive problem. And again, what Bill Burr is trying to express is something that is probably being felt by a lot of people. The whole idea of like, hey, by the way, you're an honest person. You're not stealing. You're working hard. You're doing your 9 to 5 every single day. If you are doing that and you are working fucking, 50, 60 hours a week, even sometimes in some cases. You might even have an additional job. You might have the app economy job. You might have to do that or Uber or whatever it is to be able to try and make ends meet. Why should you be struggling? That doesn't make sense. In the richest fucking country in the world. That's what's so sick about it. And it's gotten to a point now where what do you think is going to fucking happen? Like, people are getting so fucking, pushed to their extremes.
But where that shades over into truly evil thinking is when you start translating that into violence.
Well, let's take a look at Bill Burr has now responded to Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro called Bill Burr woke after comedian lashes out at CEOs as selfish, greedy pieces of shit. Burr now responds, that guy is a jerk-off. I agree, Bill. Bill Burr recently spoke to the New York Times and shrugged off Ben Shapiro's criticism of him. The conservative political commentator and Daily Wire co-founder called out Burr in December for, quote, going woke, after the comedian lashed out at selfish and greedy CEOs in the wake of the murder of United Healthcare Chief Executive Brian Thompson. And by the way, if you just start labeling every single thing you don't like, as in people aren't basically licking the boot to your fucking, qualifications, then what? If you label everything woke, eventually, the woke will outnumber you vastly. All he knew is if he put the word woke on what I said, he would make more money. True, Burr now said of Shapiro's claim. I don't know who he is, but that guy is a jerk off. I love that response from people sometimes. I don't know who you are. I have no idea who you are, but yeah, sure. Yeah, super woke. Well, Burr did not support Thompson's killing. He observed on an episode of Monday Morning Podcast in December that news organizations were not taking note of the incredible lack of empathy from the general public about this because of how insurance companies treat people when they are at their most vulnerable after we've given all of our money to them every fucking month, and now we finally need you, and all you do is deny us. And also, who gets more coverage? Who gets more sympathy? How many stories do these mainstream media outlets, or Ben Shapiro for that matter, run about people who are either sick, dying, or end up just, unable to provide for, basic adequate healthcare for their kids or themselves because of these predatory insurance companies? How many times do they run those stories versus how much tears they shed for the CEO of this predatory insurance company that had one of the worst, if not the worst amount of, rate of return in terms of their claims, as in they denied the most claims of any insurance company. They were actually using AI systems in order to deny more claims than their competitors to be able to, again, be the best. That's how you win at the game of capitalism. We're the best insurance company. We barely give anybody anything. And then we get to keep all their money that they give us on a monthly basis. And then these pussies and all these things are taking the pictures of the CEOs off their websites, Burr continued. I gotta be honest with you, okay? I love that fucking CEOs are fucking afraid right now. You should be. By and large, you're all a bunch of selfish, greedy fucking pieces of shit, and a lot of you are mass murderers. You don't just pull the trigger. That's why it looks clean. Burr clarified in the following podcast that he did not mean in any way that Thompson deserved to be killed. He was only talking about how the public reacted to the killing and how it was hard to fault those who did not take issue with it. For them to be like, oh, why would anyone want to do this? They're denying claims and people are dying, Burr said. Shapiro responded to Burr on the Daily Wire with a written critique in which Shapiro claimed Burr has become woke. Over time, I think he became embarrassed that many people on the right thought he was very funny, so he decided he was going to go woke. What is this mindset and or brain? Yes, that's what happened here. Because people on the right found him funny, he was like, I have to go woke now. Burr openly cheered the murder of United Healthcare executives because he says CEOs should live in fear if they don't act the way that he says would have them act in a system that has no fixes for, by the way, Shapiro added, despite Burr stressing he was never cheering the murder on, but simply understanding the public's reaction to it. Shapiro went on to call Burr's comments truly evil, adding, he's saying that you should live in fear if you're the CEO of a company that does things that Burr deems to be bad or wrong. Burr spoke to the New York Times ahead of the Broadway debut of Glenn Ross, in which he's starring opposite of Bob Odenkirk and Kieran Culkin. Wow, that is one hell of a cast. Sounds good.
That billionaires, because you misunderstand economics, need to be killed because they're suddenly centralizing all the resources. Please, name me the person from whom Elon Musk has stolen money. Seriously.
The American taxpayer. I don't know the raw number off the top of my head, what that would be. How many millions of Americans pay taxes, but them in the form of massive billions and billions of dollars worth of government subsidies towards his companies and corporations. That would be my. I know that's millions. I guess if you just want to name a random American that you know who has paid taxes in the past couple of years, you could choose them or go to that.
Don't let this happen to you. Go to serfscoffee.com to order the only end-to-end owned indigenous coffee company that delivers blood-free, conflict-free, and cruelty-free beans right to your door. 0% of people who drink serfscoffee.com have exploded spontaneously. By ordering right now, you get 10% off plus free shipping, and it's the best way to enjoy delicious coffee while not exploding. That's serfscoffee.com, serfscoffee.com.
Attention everyone, this independent series is made entirely possible thanks to our patrons. It was produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimongi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bohem, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, and Words Greenwood. Not to mention all the other patrons we now see on screen. We couldn't have done this show without you. If you can help support the show, please check out patreon.com/the Serfs to unlock bonus secret episodes as well as get the content before anyone else.